Two scammers posing as HOA officials thought they could bully homeowners and slip into private yards without facing any consequences. Confident in their scam, they broke into the wrong backyard under the cover of night, expecting an easy target. What they didn't anticipate, however, was a 450-pound Bengal tiger waiting for them in the dark. But hold on, this wild encounter didn't just stop there. Here's how it all went down and why justice was served. Jason Carter had lived peacefully in his Texas home for the past 12 years, relishing the solitude and calm of suburban life. He loved his neighborhood for one major reason. It wasn't bogged down by petty HOA drama. No ridiculous rules about fence height. No nosy neighbors issuing fines for grass that was a shade too long. Just wide open yards, good people, and a mutual respect for privacy. So, when two unfamiliar men strolled up his driveway wearing cheap polo shirts with logos that looked like they were slapped together at a mall kiosk, Jason's radar immediately went up. These guys were trouble. The first guy, a burly middle-aged man with a sunburnt scalp peeking through his thinning hair, adjusted his poorly crafted badge and forced a tight smile. It was the kind of smile that said, "I'm just doing my job," but really screamed, "I know I'm full of it, but let's see if you're gullible enough to buy it." "Sir, we've had reports of an unauthorized structure on your property," the man said, his voice carrying that fake official tone that was all too familiar, like something out of a mall cop's handbook. Jason didn't flinch. Having dealt with liars and schemers during his time in the Marines, he knew the drill. His arms crossed over his chest, his feet planted firmly on the porch like he was preparing for a battle. "Yeah." His voice was flat, unimpressed. "And who exactly reported this?" The second man, lanky and jittery, stepped forward. His eyes scanned Jason's face, trying to figure out if he'd be an easy mark, someone who'd just roll over and comply. "It's just routine, sir," he stammered, his hands shoved awkwardly into his pockets like a nervous teenager caught in a lie. "HOA regulations." Jason let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "We don't have an HOA." The hesitation was almost imperceptible. The two men exchanged a brief glance, clearly caught off guard by someone who actually knew the rules of his own neighborhood. But instead of backing down, the bald one puffed up his chest and tried to salvage the situation. "We're acting under the authority of the Homeowners Protection Act," he declared, as if it was some kind of trump card. "We need access to your backyard." Jason raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "The what now?" A smirk played at the corner of his mouth. "You mean that fake HOA scam where random guys try to fine people for violations that don't exist?" The bald one's forced smile faltered. "We're just here to ensure community safety," he said, trying to hold on to some semblance of authority. Jason took a step forward, closing the gap between them. It was a subtle move, just enough to make them realize they were in way over their heads. "Well, if you're really official, let me see some identification." That's when the lanky one made the mistake of reaching for Jason's doorknob. Without thinking, Jason's hand shot out, grabbing the guy's wrist with enough force to make him yelp. "Bad move." Jason's voice dropped into a cold, unwavering tone. It was the kind of voice that made people reconsider their life choices. He squeezed just enough to make the guy wince. "You've got 5 seconds to get off my porch before I call the cops." The lanky man yanked his arm back, stumbling a step behind the bald one, who was already retreating. "This is going on record," the bald one huffed, trying to salvage what little dignity he had left. "You'll be hearing from the board." Jason just shook his head, watching the two of them scamper away, their bravado disintegrating with every step. "Yeah, good luck with that," he muttered to himself as he closed the door. He thought that was the end of it. He had no idea just how wrong he was. Jason wasn't paranoid, but he wasn't the type to ignore his instincts when something felt off. Those two idiots had trouble written all over them. That night, as the Texas heat settled into a sticky, suffocating blanket, he decided to beef up his security, just in case. The camera zoomed in on the back fence, night vision engaged, motion tracking active. If those fake HOA clowns were dumb enough to show up again, Jason was ready to catch them in the act. And they would return. They had been terrorizing the neighborhood for months, preying on retirees and busy families, acting like they had the authority to issue fines and regulations. Fake notices, bogus citations, they'd tried it all. When that didn't work, they trespassed, sneaking into backyards at night, taking photos of supposed violations to intimidate homeowners into paying. Jason had no patience for bullies. If these guys wanted to play games, they were about to learn they had picked the wrong house. At exactly 2:14 a.m., Jason's phone buzzed on the nightstand. The alert on the screen shot adrenaline through his veins. Motion detected in backyard. His eyes snapped open as he saw the notification. He knew exactly who it was. Without hesitation, he grabbed his phone, swiped to the camera feed, and there they were, Baldy and Shifty Eyes, creeping along the fence like raccoons hunting for scraps. They had flashlights, but they were cautious, sweeping the beams low to avoid the windows. Amateurs. Jason exhaled sharply, shaking his head. He slid out of bed, moving with the practiced silence of a man who had mastered the art of stealth. His hands worked on autopilot, grabbing the shotgun from the rack in his closet and loading a round for effect. He wasn't planning on shooting anyone, at least, not unless they gave him a reason. Stepping toward the back door, his heartbeat remained steady. No panic, no hesitation. He'd been in worse situations, faced real threats. This was nothing. Jason positioned himself at the door, one hand on the light switch, the other steady on the shotgun. He waited, letting them get comfortable, letting them think they had control. Then, he flipped the floodlights on. Baldy and Shifty Eyes froze, their faces washed in harsh white light. If not for the terror in their eyes, Jason might have laughed. "I know you idiots aren't dumb enough to be on my property right now," he called out, his voice calm but dripping with menace. He racked the shotgun, the unmistakable clack-clack splitting the silence. That's when something else moved. Not Jason, not the intruders, but something massive. The sound wasn't thunder. It was a low, rumbling growl, a vibration that seeped into the air, creeping into their bones and freezing their blood. Shifty Eyes twitched, jerking his head toward the dark. Baldy froze, stiffening as if realizing something far worse than Jason and his shotgun was about to happen. Jason's smirk widened. "Oh, you're gonna love this." Baldy and Shifty Eyes turned slowly, like their brains were struggling to process the nightmare unfolding behind them. Their flashlights wavered, shaking in their hands, their eyes darting anywhere but toward the massive shape just beyond the floodlights. They could feel it, something big, something powerful, something that had just shifted its weight in a way that sent a primal message straight to their brains. Run or die. But their bodies didn't respond. The breath came next, slow, heavy, a deep exhale through enormous nostrils, carrying the unmistakable warmth of a predator's lungs. It wasn't just the sound. It was the heat on the back of their necks, the way their chest tightened with ice-cold terror. Baldy's sunburned scalp went pale, his lips trembling as he struggled to form words. Shifty Eyes managed only a wheeze, his entire body frozen, unable to move. Deep down, he knew, don't run. Running makes it chase you. Jason, leaning casually against the porch railing, was enjoying this far too much. Just beyond the reach of the floodlights, half hidden in the darkness, was Samson, a 450-pound Bengal tiger. And right now, Samson was very, very interested in the two uninvited guests in his territory. The tiger didn't need to roar or snarl. He simply stared. A slow flick of the tail, a shift of powerful shoulders, a slight twitch of one rounded ear. He was weighing his options, and Jason knew, without a doubt, that the HOA scammers had made the worst mistake of their lives. Jason stepped forward. That was all it took. Shifty Eyes lost it completely. A shriek tore from his throat, high-pitched, raw, the kind that only comes when someone realizes they're no longer the top predator in the room. Jason had never seen a man scale a fence so fast. It almost looked impressive, like a panicked squirrel. His shoes slipped against the wood, arms flailing as he scrambled for escape. But his body had already betrayed him. Halfway up, a dark stain bloomed down the inside of his jeans. Jason muffled a laugh, trying not to burst out loud. Meanwhile, Bally had the opposite reaction. He didn't run. Instead, he dropped backward, straight onto his butt. As his back hit the grass, a panicked gasp escaped his lips. His chest heaved in shallow, rapid breaths. He tried to crawl, tried to put distance between himself and the beast in front of him, but his limbs betrayed him. He made it maybe 3 feet before collapsing. Then, to Jason's delight, Bally dropped to his knees, hands clasped, shaking like a sinner in church, begging for mercy. "Please," he sobbed, his eyes wide, pupils dilated in terror. Please call it off. I'm begging you." Jason let the moment stretch out, savoring their stupidity. Finally, he let out a slow, practiced whistle. The sharp sound sliced through the night air. Instantly, Samson froze. His massive head tilted to the side, ears pricked forward, waiting for instructions. Samson wasn't hunting. He wasn't even angry. He was just curious. Jason knew the big cat better than most people. He'd raised him since the Marine Corps when he'd rescued him from a failing sanctuary. Samson had his own secure habitat, reinforced steel fences, double gates, all the safety measures. But tonight, Jason had made one small mistake. He'd forgotten to lock the secondary door. A harmless slip-up. One that turned into a very educational experience for two idiots who thought they could trespass without consequences. Jason stepped off the porch and took in the scene. Bally was still on his knees, sniffling, hands clasped like he was about to pray. Shifty eyes hung off the top of the fence, one leg awkwardly caught as he struggled to pull himself over. But his pants, well, let's just say they weren't helping. Jason crossed his arms, tilting his head with exaggerated curiosity. "Oh, but I thought you two were official inspectors," he asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's the rush?" Bally choked on a sob, barely getting out. "We're sorry. It was a mistake." His voice cracked. Jason chuckled low, allowing a grin to spread. "Oh, it sure was," he replied, shaking his head. By the time the cops showed up, Bally and Shifty Eyes were long gone, sprinting down the street like their lives depended on it. Jason hadn't moved, just watched them flee with the kind of satisfaction most people get from a perfectly grilled steak. One officer stepped out, looking already exhausted. "Got a call about trespassers?" Jason smirked. "Oh, you just missed them," he said, then told them the whole story. How the scammers had been harassing homeowners, how they'd tried their fake HOA scam on him, and most importantly, how they'd trespassed in the middle of the night. The cops exchanged a glance. "Yeah, these guys have been pulling this scam all over the county," one officer muttered. "But breaking and entering? That's a new one." The other officer shook his head. "Looks like you gave them a lesson they won't forget." Jason chuckled. "Let's hope so." The next morning, news spread fast. Instead of laying low, Bally and Shifty Eyes had gone straight to the police station, demanding protection from a deranged homeowner with a tiger. Jason almost spat his coffee when he heard that part. Witnesses said the two burst into the station, yelling over each other. "He's got a tiger, man. A real tiger. He set it on us like some kind of psycho." One officer at the desk, who had already received Jason's report, leaned back in his chair. "So what exactly were you two doing on his property at 2 in the morning?" Silence. Just like that, their story collapsed. By noon, the county issued a statement. 2 men posing as HOA officials had been arrested for trespassing, fraud, and attempted burglary. Meanwhile, Jason sat on his porch, sipping coffee, enjoying the peaceful morning. Beside him, Samson stretched lazily in the sun, yawning like a giant house cat. Jason scratched behind Samson's ear. "Guess we won't be seeing them again." Samson purred. Jason smirked. "Damn right we won't."